Hello. How are we all doing? Let me know if everything's working fine. If you've got... let me just check. Sounds like sound's there. Seeing if everything's working. I'm trying to... It's hard to tell because the sound, I don't have it up on the monitor because you get that loop thing. We went through this last time, didn't we? Hopefully I'm not going to be completely blown out by the lights this time. Okay. Oh, we've got 61 people in. That's good. It's funny when I do these things a little bit later. It's we get a fair few more people in. Oh, I'm wearing a Fender t-shirt. Hi, Vichy. Vichy, is that right? Hi, Mike. Just downloaded the app for iPhone. Yes. So the reason that I'm doing this live stream, because obviously I don't do that many on YouTube. Is my vocal okay? Oh yeah. Everything seems echoey, but I think it's just this room. Let me just. It's going to turn up my headphones, so I've got. I think my bass is a tiny bit loud. Yeah, because then the Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, so obviously I don't do that many of the live streams. Oh, look, we got a super chat. Thank you, Marco. Is that Euro? That's euros, isn't it? Yeah, I don't normally do them. I did one last week, I know. But this week we've got two things going on. One is the end of the sale. So if any of you are looking for a bargain and looking to get one of the TalkingBass courses, then there's 30% discount at the moment. So just get on over to the store and it'll be for the next day. And then also the big news is that today I've finally got the TalkingBass app out. So this isn't the Scales app that I had out a bit back. This one is the TalkingBass. That one. The TalkingBass app, as in it's the website. So all of the stuff that you get on the website, so you can log in with your account details, although I'll get to that in a sec because a couple of people have had problems. You can sign in with your normal details that you see there on the login screen. And you'll have access to all your courses, which I've kind of calibrated, so it's a lot better for people on mobile devices, because before, when you were doing the courses and then on a desktop, they're fine, but if you're using a mobile device like a tablet or a phone, it doesn't really work so well. So using the app, it's all lovely now. It all looks lovely and nice, right? So all nice formatting and all that kind of stuff. Also, all of the other things that are on the website are all there, and it's all from a menu. Very much like the difference between using something like Facebook or Instagram. Instagram's a bad example, but let's say Facebook, right? Facebook on desktop is great, but then if you were to try using Facebook in a browser like Chrome or Safari on your phone, it's a little bit naff. You wouldn't do it, would you? You just download the Facebook app. Well, that's what this is. So you just download the TalkingBass app, and it's all there. The only problems we've had so far is I've had a couple of people say that they couldn't log in with their details. So I want to get to the bottom of why that is. And I have to say that the very first time I ever tried it on the test app that I was doing, I actually had that problem as well. but I was the only person that happened to, and so I just redid my password, and it worked. So if you do get that problem, most people seem to be fine, but if you do get that problem, try resetting your password, because there'll be a, down there on there, there's forgot password. The little link on there. So just do that and then just reset your password. You could probably even put the same password that you've already got. Put that in and then see whether that helps, because it helped me on that one when I did it, and I don't know why it is, and I've got to get to the bottom of it, because it's talking to the same database. Everything's it's a mobile version of the website, so it doesn't make any sense that it'll work. It works on desktop and then doesn't work on mobile. So there's something going on there. So I need to figure that out. So if that does happen to you, be sure to tell me. So just send me an email and try resetting your password. If you really wanted, you could start up a new account. You can just, start up a new account there and then that'll work. But you don't really want to be doing that. And you certainly don't want to do that if you've already got courses. The app is free. And you can get it for Android and iOS. So any Apple devices, any Android devices, so that's phones or tablets, it works across the board. So looks like I've beaten SBL to getting an app out, doesn't it? I've been wondering for ages, why has SBL Academy not got an app out? In fact, I'm coming up to Yorkshire next month. I'm going to ask Scott. So, yeah, he might even be watching this. If you're watching, Scott, why have you not got an app out? I bet he's working on one. Because they need an app. It'd be great, the SBL Academy on an app. So, so that's all they're doing. So we've got the sale that finishes tomorrow. So 30% off all the courses. So that's beginner bass through to ear training, sight reading, slap bass, all that stuff. Chord tone essentials, scale essentials, and then also the app is out. So if you just go to the TalkingBass, if you go to the App Store. So if you're on your phone, App Store or Google Play or whatever. Just do a search for Talking Bass. You'll see two apps. You'll see the Scales one, which you pay for. That's a separate one. Don't worry about that one. Go for the free one, which is the Talking Bass app, which is just the website one. So just do that. And then, that's it. Just wondering if there's any other news. I don't think there is. So today I'm going to do a little bit of a quick sort of seminary kind of thing on, I hate to say masterclass because I don't think it's I don't really think of it as a masterclass, but let's just say a workshop. And I've made a couple of notes on things that I can cover. It's going to be about technique. So this is for beginners as well as intermediates and whatever. So I'm going to cover a few things to do with the left and right hands. Stuff that I've probably covered in YouTube videos from over the years, but I'll just try and condense it into a smaller one-size-fits-all lesson here. So before that, let's just let a few more people come in. So we've got 109 watching. That's okay. Well, that's it. You get chat revenue now in this thing. The whole, since I was doing the YouTube live streams, I used to do 4 a week. I used to do 2 on a Saturday, 2 on a Sunday. And when I used to do that, the whole thing was completely different. And now I've come back to it. We've got all this fancy stuff in the back end that I'm looking at. Tells you everything. Chat revenue. Oh, look, I've got another super chat. Hi, Hessings Hezobs. $5. Nice one. Best YouTube channel right here. Don't want to hear any arguments. Woohoo! Go, Talking Bass. Or as Adam Neely says, bass. Just out of interest, because I'm sure a lot of you like Adam Neely. Have you all seen my interview with Adam Neely? It's one of those things that I did an interview with him. I did an interview with a load of guys, actually, about, not the ones that I did, that Ellen and me were doing over this past year, but about 2 years ago, I did a succession of cool interviews with guys like, who was it? We had Adam Neely, Joe Hubbard, Jeff Berlin. I did 2 with Jeff Berlin. Steve Lawson, Todd Johnson, Ariane Kapp. Who else? Derek Bennett, a bunch of guys. Adam Neely, like I said, and they're here on YouTube, but nobody ever seems to watch the interviews. Like, I can do a video on a Motorhead riff, and I'll get like nearly 1 million views, and then I do an interview with a guy like Jeff Berlin or Adam Neely or whoever, you know. I did one with Frank Bello, and it hardly had any views, and I use the same kind of principles that I do with all the other ones, you know, in terms of clickbait and all those kind of things. But nobody ever seems to really like the interviews. But, you know, we have a small set of people that are really into it, but it doesn't seem to get the reach that the others do. So if you're into Adam Neely, there's a really cool interview that I did with him here. Just go to the Talking Bass website and go to interviews, and there's a big list of them there. You can see them all. The ones with Jeff Berlin were great as well. Yeah. So, and Tony Levin, the recent ones, the Tony Levin one probably did the best. The Guy Pratt one's great. The latest one that I did with Steve Pierce is amazing, but that's not had any many views as well. But that's brilliant. He's one of the best session guys out there. So, before I do the workshop, we've got 133 now. Oh, wow, we're going up. Let's. I'll just say hello to everybody. So, hi Pam. Hi Cake. That's a good name, isn't it? Thank you very much, Jesse. Apple My S10 is great. So, yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of people that are getting pretty good, that it's working for on their apps. Can you allow the app to flip on an iPad, please? Does it not flip? These YouTube live streams are so much cleaner and neater than the Facebook ones. Yeah, I know. What course do you recommend after the starter pack for beginners? Chord Tone Essentials or Sight Reading? There's a video on the courses page. If you go to courses, not the individual courses page, if you go to courses on the main domain on TalkingBass.net, TalkingBass.net/courses, there's a video there, and I work through how you buy the courses and how you access them. But I also talk about the which course to get and the order of them. Also, in the frequently asked questions, the FAQ in the members area. There's that bit's there as well. There's a video based on that. So I would say if you're a beginner, obviously beginner and basic fundamentals, that's just like a leveler. And then the simple steps to sight reading or Chord Tone Essentials or both, because they both cover different things, but Chord Tone Essentials really levels everybody off in terms of harmony. It's kind of like it's not just a beginner thing, that it's not, and it's certainly not just a primer. I call it Chord Tone Essentials as if it's just like the essentials of it, but it really does cover everything in terms of chord symbols and chord construction and the basics of harmony. I'm going to do an applied harmony course probably over the next year or so, and that's going to cover everything. You know, like I did that one yesterday on tritone substitutions. I'll be doing one on like everything. So, hi Edward. Susie Quattro was the one for me. First bass player I noticed when about age 10. Guy Pratt was good as well. Yep, they were all cool. I've got a ton more to release, but I'm just getting around to it because I've been so busy with all this other stuff. Namaste. Yesterday's lesson equals good stuff. Thanks. Yeah, just in case you all missed it, the tritone substitutions thing. And in a nutshell, if you want to know what a tritone substitution is, it's basically if you took a chord like a C7, a dominant 7 chord, you can substitute it with a tritone away. What's a tritone? Well, it's a flat 5, basically. So called because C, upper tone, upper tone, upper tone, 3 tones, 3 whole steps, C to D, D to E, E to F sharp, C to F sharp, or G flat, more importantly, is a tritone. So if you take now this only really applies to jazz harmony, to be honest. You couldn't do it like on a chord 1 of a blues. You know, if you're in an F blues, you you wouldn't substitute the F7 with like a B7 to start off with. That's just not going to work. You could do an approach down to the B flat, I suppose, but that's not really a tritone substitution. That's just a side slip. But if you're playing, the example that I give in there is 1625 in the key of C major, A minor, D minor, G7. If you take that and then you take the chord 5, which is G7, which is a dominant 7 chord, okay, that's the chord 5, and then you play the tritone away, the D flat 7. So remember, G to D flat is a tritone, so I substitute that. What we get then is C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, and then D flat 7, leading back into the C major 7. So that's the effect it gives you. So you got that chromatic movement. So that's basically it. That's basically what you use tritone substitutions for. Think of a 2-5-1 progression, 2-5-1, and then just play 2, flat 2, 1. There's other ways you can use it, which I've shown in the lesson, where you kind of take secondary dominants like A7, so you can play it on an E flat. So you can do all kinds of things with it. But when you kind of learn this stuff, like the jazz harmony side of things, certainly learn your chords in a key, but you need to learn chord construction first, chord construction principles, how you build chords out of thirds. If you take the order of it, I would say, if you want to learn all that kind of theory stuff, learn how to construct chords, learn about chord tones. So you want to learn how to make triads, seventh chords, and all that stuff. And I did that in the last live stream. So you learn all that. Then learn about chords in a key. So if I'm in the key of C major, for want of a better key, you can do it with triads. So C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminish, and back to C major. So that's the order of chords in that key. That's your palette of chords, just in case you've ever wondered why you use certain chords in a key. Then you could do it with seventh chords, so C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, G7, A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, and back to C major 7. So that's your set of seventh chords. So you want to learn that, and then you want to learn about all these sort of, and how you would use those with, within a key, like cyclic progression, like 2-5-1, 6-2-5-1. 3-6-2-5-1, 7-3-6-2-5-1, like cyclic movement. How you use tonic, subdominant, and dominant chords, like tonic chord being chord 1, F major, chord 4, G major, chord 5, and back to chord 1. So that 5-1 progression. That sound of moving back home. La-dee-da. All the different things that you can do with chord progressions, and you'll see all these different little formula that you get from it. These little patterns that are used all the time, like 5-1, moving from 1 to, and then moving up to 4, blues chord progressions, just analysing chord progressions. So you kind of get used to that, and then you can start really looking at secondary dominant chords, tritone dominant chords, all of those things, the chromaticism that you put into harmony. But it all starts with the real basics. You want intervals, then you want chord construction, then you want to see how chords work diatonically, tonic, subdominant, dominant, all of that. Secondary dominant chords, tritone substitutions. And before you know it, you're analysing jazz, quite complicated jazz standards. And then you can go on to Coltrane changes and all that kind of stuff. But it all starts with the basics, which is intervals. So that's just a quick rundown of what I did yesterday and how you would get there. Okay, so hey Matt, can you do a video on playing synth bass lines like the Sussudio one? I am going to do one, and I'm actually going to do one on octave bass lines. I might just do one on. Well, there's a few that I want to do. I want to do the Guy Pratt one. I wanted to. In fact, I'll do a Pinot one. Probably. I don't know. There's a few Pinot ones from the Paul Young days, and then I might do the Like a Prayer one by Guy Pratt. Also, Sledgehammer, Tony Levin playing that. There's a bunch of them, and I'll probably put them in a sort of collection on a. So that's with the octave pedal. But yeah, I'll look at some synth bass lines for you. Watching from Hong Kong, good to catch up on live. By the way, is your bass strap from Scott's Bass Lessons? No, and everybody thinks it is. They all think it's a one strap, but it's not. This is a Levy's Leathers one. These are my favourite straps. Scott needs to give me one of those things. I'm probably going to see him this month sometime, a couple of weeks. I'm going to see if he's got any kicking about, because I've not tried one of his straps. I remember sitting and talking to him about it when he was just getting them developed. And I was like, man, I know what went into that. It was a pretty hardcore thing to get off the ground, and they've done really well. But I've not tried one out. But these are my favourite straps, but they're quite expensive. I can't remember how much they are. $70, $80. They're for what, for a strap. I mean, let's face it, it's just a strap, isn't it? It's not like you're buying a bass, but it's 4.5 inches, and I've got to say that because I've had so many problems with my back, this is a godsend. I love it. No problems there with Mario. He's got the app. Great. Could the Tritone sub work in classical? You do get it. I mean, I'm not the greatest classical harmony teacher, but a lot. I mean, if you look at older stuff like Baroque period and that, it's a lot more straightforward than what you get in, let's say, jazz. But not that straightforward. You do get some fairly crazy little things going on. You can certainly get a lot of secondary dominance in Baroque period stuff like Bach, but then you get a lot more of the odder things coming as time progresses, as you get into the classical period and then romantic period, certainly, until everything just goes to complete, Wild West in the 20th century. But it's I'm going to find that out. I want to see if there are any examples of like tritone substitutions in the similar way that you would use them in jazz. Because I'm pretty sure there will be, but I couldn't name any offhand. There's a million and one different examples of secondary dominance, but that's just that's less of a jazzy thing. I liked your interview with Joe Hubbard. Thank you very much. Hi. That's Mary Jane. How are you, Mary Jane? Cool set of courses would be how to play in the style of, not a particular song, but more generally how each artist approaches music. Yeah, that'd be quite cool. I tried to steer a little bit clear of that because really people at some point want to play in their own style and develop their own style. So it's a little bit weird when you're sort of trying to teach how to play in that style. But yeah, I mean, I could do a lesson at least on a particular bass player and what makes their style their style. I mean, a little bit like what I did with Jameson on that recent I Was Made to Love Her lesson. Ed says, what worked for me, I did 2 levels of sight reading and then I started chord tones. Being able to read helped me get through chord tone essentials efficiently. Cool. Anyone else that's a beginner just zone out when he does this? What you mean when I'm doing the jazz thing? Yeah, I'm guessing so. Can you teach us some arpeggios here in the stream? Yes, I will. I'll do some in a minute. Stepping out's a good octave bassline practice. I am going to do a Joe Jackson special. Graham Maybe. I'm going to do a bunch of his lines because I'm a big Joe Jackson fan. What strap lock system are you using with the Levy? Good old Grolsch bottle washer. I use that on everything. I'll tell you why as well. I did a lesson on this. You can use this isn't a Grolsch one. You can actually just buy them now. They're the washers that you get on bottles of beer, right? The reason that I use these instead of strap locks is because when I used to use strap locks, which I've used all my career, right, from the 90s, I guess, mid 90s when I started playing a lot, professionally. I always had strap locks, and I always found them really useful because you can take your strap off easily. There's, and a number of times before that when I just used to have a strap and I never had anything to hold it on, and then I'd be on stage and the thing bonk, and then it pops off. No one had. Back in those days, I didn't really have anybody telling me anything about all that stuff. I mean, people go on YouTube now, and everybody just knows everything about everything. But I just learned everything on the fly, and so then I had strap locks. So what is it? Yeah, probably had strap locks for a good 15, 16 years. I mean, the early Talking Bass videos, I'd got strap locks on, but I noticed that I was getting a lot of little squeak. You know when you get that rattle, anybody of you that use strap locks, regardless of the brand, you'll always get that little kind of rattle and that little squeak that you get, and normally it doesn't make any difference at all. I mean, it doesn't matter. But when you're recording live and you've got a lavalier mic on, not recording live, when you're recording a video, let's say it's something like I do, and I've got a lavalier mic on that's right next to where the strap lock is, you keep getting this squeak going, wiki, wiki, wiki. So I was like, oh, that's terrible. So that's when I started using these. And I'd heard about people doing this, but I always thought, nah, that won't work. But it bloody does. So, so now that's what I do all the time. You can buy huge packs of these things. Look, I've got a load of them. You can buy packs of them from Amazon. So I just do that and stick them on. Then you don't have to be unscrewing the screws out of your bass and all that. You just pop it on. Okay, so I'll get talking about all this technique thing. So, So first things first, in terms of technique, one of the things that is worth mentioning is bass position. Before I get onto left hand and right hand, it's all about how you position your bass. Now, a lot of you will sit like that, right, with it on your right leg. If you're right-handed, on your right leg, right? So it's hard in this chair, but so you sit like that. So, and that's probably how I used to play all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I do find it a lot easier to, there's a good reason for doing this as well. So I generally have it sort of not sat on a leg at all. I kind of have it leant up against my left leg in classical mode. So you can see here that I'm sat like this. If I'm sat straight on, you can see that is kind of, I have the strap set so that it's not pushing down on my leg, and I've just got it rested against that leg. But it's at that height. And this part of it's kind of buttered up against this leg. So very much in classical, so if Now, there's a reason that I like doing this, and I can give the example very easily by just standing up. So think about how, let me just get this out of here because you know what's going to happen. The whole thing's just going to fall apart. So if I'm like this, and then I stand up, it doesn't move. Now, I learned that from Billy Sheehan very early on, right? But there's more to it than that. So there's the Billy Sheehan thing about the strap height, because he likes to have it set exactly the same whether he sat down or stood up, which is a great idea, because it means that, if you're playing something, you're sat there playing, and, and let's say it's, you're playing something quite technical, you want it to be exactly the same when you stood up, because otherwise it's kind of like learning something again differently, because the angle of your hand, the position of everything, it all ends up changing. If I'm sat like this, and then I'm learning that, and then I stand up, I'm never going to stand up with it like that. So I like to have it in exactly the same position as I will have it stood up. But like I said, it's not just about the strap height. When you have it in the middle of your body like this, with so it's not sat on this leg, it means it just, when you stand up, it doesn't move. Look, just plonks itself down there. So that's how I like to have it set. So that's first thing, right? Because once you've got that set, everything kind of works off that. You can do what you want in terms of getting your hand positions and thumb in the back and, doing all the, whatever you're going to do with your technique. But if you change the position of your bass, all of the angles and the position is going to change as well. So unless you get that sorted so that that is consistent, you can do what you want. It's all going to change. So yeah, that's the kind of consistent thing. And it's funny, thinking back now, and I've not thought about this since, that first Billy Sheehan video I watched back in 1991, I reckon, that changed everything for me. First time I saw it, not the Bass Secrets one, it was the other one. I got that, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, he's doing all the crazy, just all of them. You know, I think it's the one where he starts off, I think he's doing that. And I was like, oh man, that sounds good. And then he just lets rip and he's doing all this stuff. Now, a lot of people don't like that kind of stuff. But, you know, as a young whatever I was, what was I then? How old were I then? 16, 15, 16? Actually, it was earlier than that. It was 1990 because I must have been 15 when I saw that. And I'd already been playing a fair while. But when I saw that, I was just like, oh my God, I didn't know anybody could do that on bass. It's a little bit like if for a lot of teenagers now that are wanting to get into technique, and if they saw Hadrian Thoreau, it'd be like a jaw on the floor kind of thing. So I saw that, and he talks about all of, well, throughout it, the tips he gives are all about getting consistency. And I think that's a really important thing. You know, when I'm saying about that's a consistent position, he talks about it with tapping. He likes to put his thumb on there so that he can just always have this consistent kind of position that he's got. So it's all about that, getting this consistency. I say the same thing about technique, actually. If you're going to be like, I did it with that solfeggiato that I just played before. You know, anybody that saw me learning that, because I did like a Facebook Live thing as I was learning it over a week or whatever it was. As I was learning it, I was making sure that every time I played it, the finger picking was the same. So that's very slow, but you want to play it slow and make sure that the fingering is the same, so that you're going to be starting on the same finger. So as I'm working on that, if I start on the second finger, which is what I'm starting on, everything feels fine. But if I suddenly change and starting on the first finger, I can't play it, right? So again, consistency. I'm wanting to make sure that every time I play it, I'm going to be using the same fingering in this hand and the same fingering in that hand. Because if you don't, and then you're practicing it, and let's say that you're just relying on habits and how you would, you know, naturally just go at it, you know, oh, maybe sometimes I rake, sometimes I don't. If you do that, every single time you practice it, you're going to be practicing it a different piece, you know, because what is it? In terms of the actual physicality of it, in terms of learning a piece of music, it's literally physical movements, right? So if those physical movements change every single time you play it, you're practicing a different piece. All right, in your mind, the notes and all of that stuff, that's the same, but the physical actions are always going to be different. So you want consistency in that. Now, as a beginner, if all you're learning is, you know, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to sit there thinking, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm using this exactly. You know, it doesn't matter. Or, you know, that doesn't matter. But the minute that you start getting through into other stuff like that, you know, that's when you've got to start thinking of these waypoints, you know, making sure that, oh, when I get to that point, I know that I'm on that finger, or when I get to this point, I know I'm going to rake. You know, not every single note, because on something fast like that, it's really hard to keep track, but just having waypoints so that you know that, oh, yeah, when I get to that rake, I've got to be on the first finger for that, or I've got to be on the second finger for that. And then if you go wrong, you know that you've gone wrong somewhere. So that's, you practice it again, and then you break it down and think, where did I go wrong? So I personally like to think from a position of alternate picking as the default, and then I use raking, you know, as the non-default. So I try to keep strict alternating, and then when I need to rake, I rake. Some people don't do that. I know Yannick Guizdala doesn't, and you know, he's a billion times better bass player than I am. But like, I know that when he's playing, he generally just kind of does. Mind you, I say that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't, but it seems like he generally rakes as default. And I, just from watching him improvise a lot, I can tell that he's just sort of been very intuitive and very whatever it is just coming out naturally. He's not really overanalyzing what he's doing. But I'm kind of different. I like to analyze things as I'm doing it. Yeah, it depends on your perspective. So anyway, that's that's the position of the bass, right? So then let's have a look at the hands, right? So left hand, right? So a few things. So one of the main things that people worry about is stretches, right? Now, don't worry about stretches. I don't care whether you've got small hands, big hands, whatever, right? I know. I've been through this quite a few times, and I know that I've argued it with people. I've argued it with people on YouTube. I've argued it with students. I've argued it all the time. People there saying that, oh, I've got too small hands. I need to have a short scale bass. Now, that's fine. Get a short scale bass. They are a bit easier on the hands. But also, by that token, I know a bass player. He lives local. Professional bass player. He's been playing for what? Oh, God knows now. I mean, it was certainly since the 1960s. He's been playing a long, long time. And the dude is really small. So he's probably about 5 foot, maybe a little bit more. He's got tiny little hands. But he's got a big-ass old school Fender Precision, right? Does he have any problems playing? No, he's a great player. So he doesn't have any problems. Now, yeah, fair enough. If you were to give him something like a George Lynch guitar piece or an Alan Holdsworth lick to play on bass, yeah, he'd probably find it quite tricky. But you find a way. One of my old, I've told this story before, one of my old harmony teachers from university, he was a pianist. He played a lot of classical and jazz. He was equally adept at both. Absolutely brilliant player. And he was really small. And he used to play Rachmaninoff a lot. He used to play a lot of Rachmaninoff pieces. Now, anybody out there that knows anything about Rachmaninoff knows there are some hellish stretches for piano on there. One of them used to be in the Guinness Book of Records about the biggest stretch in standard repertoire. And I can't remember which piece it is, but I used to try playing it all the time on piano, and I just couldn't get anywhere close to it. I think it was on middle C, so C, G, C, and then I think it was E, G as a block chord. Now, he was tiny, was Bill, with tiny hands, but he found a way. He'd usually use the sustain pedal and kind of almost like roll things a little bit to get around them, but you can always find a way. And that's the same with having small hands playing bass guitar. You'll see tiny guys playing double bass, and that's way bigger scale than electric. But it's just finding a way. So one of the things not to fall into is thinking that you've got to have this constant 4-fret stretch. You know, that 1 finger per fret thing. You know, especially down in the nether regions down here. I tend to, let's say I'm on stage and I'm just playing some bog standard bass line, right? That one note kind of thing, just like. That's literally how I would play it. I'd have my hand like this, right? I'm not holding it across loads of frets. I don't hold like this, and I don't hold like this, and I've just got this relaxed hand. And generally, it tends to sort of fall into a kind of 3-fret span. Most people that you see when they're playing, they kind of have the hand in this kind of 3-fret span. It's handy for being able to pick out octaves. I generally kind of think in a kind of octave pattern, so the hand's there. So the hand's ready to do this, because you're going to be using octaves and fifths more than you are minor sixths and minor thirds, and that's what you're going to get from that 4-fret stretch. So let's face it, octaves and fifths are the bass player's friend. So that's what you want to have, more a 3-fret stretch, and you will find if you get your technique right that that's pretty much in the reach of most people. Not everybody. Fair enough. If you want to go for a short scale bass, you can, but I generally find that the people that find the stretches a problem, more often than not, it's kind of a technique issue. So, and I'm guessing I'll have loads of people arguing here saying, no, that's wrong. I've got tiny hands and I can't do it. But anyway, so one thing to be aware of is that you need to use position shifts a lot more. So if I was to play, let's say, and I don't mean position shifts necessarily moving all the way up the neck, like, that kind of position shift, or even not even that kind of position shift. I'm talking more, if you're going to play a major scale, right? There, just C major. Try pivoting. Now, pivoting is where you put your thumb there in the back, and then you do this kind of thing. Now, I'll give an example of how large a stretch you can get. It's not a stretch. How far you can move without moving the hand, right? So if I'm playing, let's say that's C. Let's go for a D, right? Let's go C. Maybe I can do it with a C. Yeah, if I put my thumb around that 8th fret area and I play C at the 5th fret of the G string, and I'm pivoting my thumb that way, I can actually reach with the 4th finger all the way up to the C. That's a 1 octave. It's a bit hard to do. That's a real stupid, extreme example, but just to show you, that's without moving the thumb, right? So, you can imagine that if I then think, okay, well, let's take it down to a more basic kind of stretch, C to E, that if you've got small hands is going to be a problem. C to E, 5th fret to 9th fret on the G string. I've got my thumb there under the 7th fret. I'm just doing that with the thumb. Now, you don't want to be doing that, really. I mean, into moving all the way up here. But just when you get down to, let's say, a major scale, I'm doing this with the thumb. So let's say you've got tiny hands, right? And your hand will only move to there. That's all you have to do. Just get used to moving the hand more. Now, when that happens, right, that leads on to my second bit of the technique thing. When you have that, and bear in mind, I am talking about having the thumb in the back here. That's the first thing that you should know, that it's usually better to have the thumb in the back than it is over the top. And before I move on to the length of notes, if I'm playing, right, and I need to get a big stretch, the further around here that you go, the less of a stretch you'll get, right? So if I'm trying to stretch from, let's say, there to, let's go for a big stretch. 7th fret to 12th fret on the G string. So, just as an example, I can get it. A lot of you might not be able to do that, but I can get that, right? Now, if I'm trying to do that, and not that many of you will, but if I'm trying to do that, I've got the thumb right over here. See it there? It slips off the end if I'm not careful. So I've just got it here. If I had it here, there's no way I'm going to be... Well, I can kind of get it with the edges of the finger. But look at the hand. It's all screwed up, right? So you want to get your hand flat across so that the fingers are parallel, so that you're not coming in at an angle, so that you want those two fingers to kind of be moving in, parallel to the frets. Get a flat hand and get the thumb over here. The further over here, the less of a stretch. Also, curling the fingers, less of a stretch. I know that everybody says, oh, you need to curl your fingers. I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, you do. For a lot of stuff. But if you're wanting a stretch, you need to flatten out the fingers, and I'll show you why. If I've got my hand like that, look at the distance between there and there, right? Okay? So, a stretch there, right? Okay, full stretched hand, right? Let's look at that. Now, what happens if I curl the fingers? Your stretch becomes less, right? So, curling my fingers and trying to get that 7th, I get a real pain here. Really difficult when you're curling your fingers, but flatten them out and you get a bigger stretch. So, thumb in the back and right over here, and then stretch. And often it's easier if you put the neck of the bass up. The neck's down here, it's a little bit trickier, but if I'm trying to get a super big stretch, I'll generally bring up the neck. That's why you see people like Billy Sheehan doing this. When they do these adverts for like Yamaha and they're trying to show this mental stretch. Well, they do that. They put the bass up in the air and you can get a bit of a bigger stretch. So that's another tip on that, right? Now, the other thing I was going to talk about was the when you do that, if you're pivoting and you're moving around wherever you go, whatever you're doing with that, and this shifting thing, the problem that you're going to get is that you're going to be lifting the fingers off and creating more staccato notes. I can't tell you how many times I've had a student that I've said, "Oh, play me whatever, a scale or an arpeggio, I don't know, whatever it is," and then they play it, and instead of let's have a perfect example, a C major scale, right? Now I'm going to play it slowly, right? Now what's happening there, right? In terms of the note duration. Okay, as slow as we can. Ba, 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 ba. Each note leads into the next. There's none of this. Ba, ba, ba. So it's not this. We want clean technique. Each note moving into the next. Okay, so what happens when you're doing all that moving around is that you can end up doing this. Taking the fingers off. Now, you don't need to have each finger held down all the time. That's the ideal situation, so that the second finger stays there, fourth finger comes down. First finger goes there, second finger goes there, fourth finger goes down. When 1, 2, 4, all held down. First, third, all held down. That's the ideal, but you don't have to do that. If you're doing position shifts, like I was telling you, you're not going to be able to do that. So what you need to then do is make sure that you move on the note, right? So you play this note. So let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You don't move until that next beat. 1, 2. So you hold it, and then you do all your moving with that finger and this finger or whatever on that 2. 1, 2. Right? 1. Move on the 2. 1, 2. Doesn't matter how big the stretch is. So if I'm going C up to, I don't know, let's think of something big. F up to 1, 2. Okay, that's a fairly big distance. Let's do a F major arpeggio going all the way up. So F, A, C. Somebody wanted to know a major arpeggio. So this is a big stretch one. Normally you wouldn't have to do this. You could just use open strings. But let's say we're going for a big stretch on it, just to show you about this position shift in malarkey. If you play that F, A, C, F, A, C, F. So that's first fret, fifth fret, E string. Third fret on the A string and D string, F, A, C, F, then up to the seventh fret of the D string, fifth fret of the G string, and 10th fret of the G string. We've got to do a lot of shifting. I don't care how big your hands are, you're not really going to want to be holding them all down. So we're shifting for each of them, right? So what you do, slow it right down, because it's harder slow than it is fast. So 1, 2. See, I moved on 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. And you'll get less of that kind of thing as well, because that's another thing people always complain about. It's like, oh, how do you stop all that fret buzz? It's like, well, do it on the beat. 1, 2, 2, 3. Now, you've got to be quite quick with your hand movements to do this. You've got to be real snappy. But doing it incredibly slow like that, when you speed up, it's not much different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But that first one, that's a big shift. Now, there's a little bit of a sound, but if you're playing with drums or something like that, it doesn't really matter. And you don't really want to be going for absolute silence with this, with the fret noise and stuff. It doesn't really matter. you'll hear most people when they're playing, especially when they're doing these huge, big kinds of shifts, it's part of just the character in the playing. And the more you speed up, the less you're going to get it. Okay, so that's a big F major. I'm not stretching at any point there. That's just moving the hand like this. And I've seen, what's it called? I can't believe I've gone blank. Teaches at Berkeley. Is at the SBL Academy all the time. Does a lot of... I can't remember his name. He's one of the main tutors at Berkeley. Anyway, he does loads of the... Does all the muting stuff. I've seen him do muting with this hand on really crazy shifts, right? So if you were to do that and play... Well, point I'm getting at is that he plays with one finger for loads of stuff. So if you're going to play that arpeggio with one finger, that's a really good exercise. Because if you can move with one finger with as held durations as possible, then with multiple fingers it's dead easy. So I'm going to do that arpeggio again, but with one finger. So F. So I'll count along. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's not much difference, is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. The sounds and all that stuff is not that different. You know, it's a bit extreme. You're never going to be in a situation where that's going to happen, but man, it really gets you used to that held duration thing. Ba 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 ba. So you've got to aim for held duration on each note. But you move as late as possible. In fact, you move on the beat. Okay? So that is how you get around all of that problem when you're playing things like scales. You know, when you're trying to do it with, you know, the pivoting kind of thing. No matter how bad technique I use for that, I should still be able to keep that held note duration. I mean, look at that. That's about as bad as it can get. I'm going to... spider fingers, right? But you want... Ba, 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 ba. Look at that. It's awful. Terrible. But I'm still keeping held note durations. You know, terrible. But point being, that's what you want to look for. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about. They're just thinking notes all the time. It's like, okay, I've got to get the notes right? So I've got to get the note there, and then I've got to get this note there. I play the note, I take the finger off, I move to the next note, I press down the note and play the note. You know, this kind of thing, right? And they're not thinking about the length of the note, and the length of the note is where all of the feel of the groove is. I mean, and forget timing and even the groove of it. It won't sound right. If I was to play, let's think of something that's got held note durations. Let's just think up a. Yeah, well, actually, I just played one, Lady Marmalade, right? If I play that slow, listen to the note durations on each note. Okay, so if I played it like this, completely different. Or, let's think. Or, depending on how you play those notes, how long the duration is going to completely change what it sounds like. So you really need to be in control of what your note duration is. If you can't control that, then, you know, well, you need to work on it, don't you? So a lot of that comes from from just, well, being aware of it more than anything, right? So that's a little bit of stuff about this hand. Another thing that's worth noting, and I talk about a lot of this stuff in the Basic Fundamentals course, is joint barring, because that's another way of being able to avoid those little gaps. So if you're playing, let's C and a G, root fifth, right? Simple bass line, right? Now, if you're not used to using this kind of joint barring thing, which I'll explain in a minute, you might play it like this. And you'd be trying to jump from one string to another with the finger, and it's really difficult. But look what I'm doing. Can you see what's happening here with this finger? So I play that first, the initial C with the fingertip, kind of, right? Then I play the second note, the G, kind of with the fingertip, and then I just bring this finger back. I do this. I'm not hammering on with it. I'm just bringing it back to hold down the note on the C. So I'm holding the C down with that joint there. And then when I go back to the G, I go back to the fingertip. Okay, and it means that you can hold the duration a lot better. So now there I'm choking off, so but there's no gap there. I'm not having to leap from string to string, and that's joint barring. You can do it with any finger. You'll often see me doing that on a lot of the lessons. So I'm using the fourth finger, and it doesn't mean that you've got to play it like a chord. So if I play this is just a C root fifth octave pattern. So C, third fret of the A string, fifth fret on the D and the G string. If I just go up and down, can you see what's happening there? I'm not using these two fingers for this. I'm just barring with the fourth finger. But what you do is fingertip for the C, kind of fingertip for the G. Then when I move across to the G string for the C, I'm doing that again. Now, on its own, that can be hard to do because it's the little finger, that pinky. But what I tend to do is use the hand as a lever. See what my arm's doing here? It's kind of doing a little bit of movement. So I'll try. Let me try and get it the angle right. Probably better from that angle, isn't it? Can you see what I'm doing there? So instead of it being all finger, I'm using this lever action with the hand so I'm using the weight of that, well, the muscles of the forearm and the wrist to bring. Is it the wrist? Yeah, kind of the wrist there. But literally, the bigger muscles to pull back. So I've got more strength. So instead of it just being trying to hold it with the fourth finger. Then if you want to hold a chord with it, you can. So that again is another cool little move that you can use. Without having to get other fingers involved. It's a lot more, what do you call it? Efficiency of, what did they used to call it? I can't remember. Guitarists always used to they had a term for it. But it's basically efficient use of the fingers. Minimal movement. Danny Moe Morris. I just saw someone in the comments. Danny Moe Morris. So that's kind of this hand. Another thing with that hand, just in case you're wondering about, let's say, slapping and stuff like that, and this applies equally to everything else, is what I call home position. Any of you that have seen many of my videos will know exactly what I'm talking about because I harp on about it all the time. And it's just something that, I mean, I've named it that, but it's something that you just see people doing all the time. And it's basically just having a clean technique, just holding everything down. So so that you don't get any noise. If you're going to be playing first time that you ever go on stage, you'll all know this. From the first, you get your bass, you've got a big amp, you go up on stage, you turn on, and it's the first time you've ever played live with a big amp, you turn it on, and you play your first few notes, and you're like, oh my God. All of a sudden, you feel a bit paranoid about the fact that everything's so loud, right? And even if you touch the strings, it's got like a boom, boom kind of noise. It's like, oh. And it can be quite intimidating the first time you do that. Now, obviously, as soon as drums start playing, guitar start playing, everything, you're just a part of the noise, right? But when everything's quiet, you're like, oh God, there's all this power on tap, right? And because it's low end, you really feel it. You can hear it. You can hear that the sympathetic vibrations from the strings. So what you want to do is you want to come from a position of silence. So first thing to do is just get that hand and just lay it across. Now, I always describe this in parts. I say, okay, get that first finger and just lay it across those strings, which would give you harmonics, right? So you can see I'm not pressing anything down, I'm just laying it across it. And then take these other fingers and then just bring them across so that they're kind of covered down to the E string. But that way, if you plug in and someone bashes the bass or you bash it or whatever, you're not going to get this boom noise, right? So, first things first, you plug in, you've got your volume up, because you don't really, you can have your volume down, but I tend to, if you're just about to start playing and then you turn your volume up and then someone goes, hiya, and then poof, you're like, you don't want that. You want your hand over there, right? So you've got that going on. Then I tend to work from that position. So I call that home position. So I've got my thumb in the back. If you can have your thumb over the top if you want, but I generally have the thumb in the back and that there. So if I'm going to play, let's say, an F, I've got my hand there. That first finger is lined up with that first fret. No noise coming from it. Then if I play the F, I hold down the F. So I press down. I'm not pressing down until the moment that I play the note. And I lift these three fingers up simultaneously as I play. So all three motions at the same time. It's not a case of press it down and then pluck. All at the same time. These fingers come up, this presses down, and I pluck. So 3, 2, 1. Ready, steady, go! All of them together, right? So, if I was on the B flat, same again. I've got the finger there, and then if I want to choke it off, I just go back to home position. Everything is working from silence. So then, you can practice this with different fingers. This way I'm actually adding the chokes in there. But if I was to add the chokes, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you're just going between home position and each finger as you go up there. Okay. If you want to look up home position, I've got tons of stuff on that on YouTube where I go into it a little bit further. And I talk about it a lot in the slap course, because when you're slapping, you don't have the advantage of using the thumb to mute the strings. So if you're, or if I'm, you move the thumb across. Okay, as I come up, so I'm just coming up an arpeggio there, right? Watch what this thumb does. It's kind of leaping over each string and... Okay, so the thumb is doing a lot of muting, but when you're doing all that stuff, you can't be using the thumb to mute anything. You can do a little bit. You can, when I play that, it's I do tend to sometimes use the palm of the hand. But most of the time, you don't have that advantage. So what you do is use this hand to do a lot of the muting. Now, sometimes you have to use the thumb, on that one especially. But if I'm jumping up onto the G string to do some bobs, look what that thumb does. I instinctively come across to mute that the E string. Okay. A lot of it depends on what you're playing, obviously. A lot of this is contextual, but look at that. When I'm playing the open E octave here, look at this thumb. It's kind of bopping in and out. So you can bring the thumb into play. And also, if I'm here, let's say I'm doing one of these things. Oh, that's probably not a good example, actually. Let's say this. One of those little triplet things. A lot of that is based on this home position. I've got the hand there, muting. I play this is a D, so slap the D, bring these fingers down. Remember that home position? I had it like this, and I was treating these three fingers independently. Well, that's where that bangy thing comes in. So this finger's always staying there, always locked down on that D. Again, see how these three fingers are kind of working independently. So again, I'm kind of treating these fingers separate from this one. So that's a bit on this hand, but then notice I was talking about the thumb. The main thing you want to think about in the right hand is muting with the thumb and muting with the fingers. You can mute with the fingers as well, especially choking. You know, when you're choking a note, you know how I said about using the home position thing down here. Well, let's say that I cut the note off. Well, I'll usually bring that finger down at the same time so that everything gets locked down, so that you've got this silence. So you can use the picking finger to choke notes off for muting as well. But it's a kind of combination of the thumb and the finger. So there's that to consider, and that's where getting used to playing across strings and shifting the thumb comes in. And I have to say that you kind of get this kind of intuitive approach to doing this a lot of the time. Like sometimes I'm not aware that I'm trying to mute consciously, but my fingers just do it. Remember what I said about that? I haven't practiced that. I improvised that. I'm just playing something. But I know that the thumb's doing its own thing. It's kind of like you intuitively instinctively try and lock things down. You know when you're not locking down a string. So a lot of it comes from that, especially with the thumb. You sometimes think, man, I'm not holding that string down. You just know there's going to be residual noise coming from it. But if you take a major scale, I use this as the standard exercise for this, you want to get used to alternate picking. So I like to try and take a scale one note at a time. So let's say we take a C major scale. So 8th and 10th fret on the E string, 7th, 8th, 10th on the A string, 8th, 9th and 10th on the D string. But you shouldn't have to know. I shouldn't be having to teach you that, but let's say that we're just using that C major scale there. I'm using the second finger, fourth finger, then first finger, second finger, fourth finger, then first finger, third finger, fourth finger for the fingering. So in that sense, that is a one finger per fret kind of thing. But then in this hand, I'm going to put the thumb on the pickup to begin with. And I'm going to start on the first finger. So the starting finger is often the most important because that's going to dictate what happens after. So I'm going to start on the first finger, on the index finger. Index is first, middle finger second. So 1, 2. So we don't have to do anything with the thumb yet. Right? Now, when I move on to the A string, so I'm going to keep alternating. So it's going to be always 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? You'll find it easier to shift the thumb when you're moving with the first finger, and you kind of have this kind of almost like a pinch action. So 1, 2, like imagine bringing the thumb right off. I'm exaggerating it there. Always isolate a move if you're having problems with it. So if you can't do that, just isolate those first 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. C, D, E. 1, 2, 1. And look, I've moved the thumb onto the E string. Just get used to that. Muscle memory on it. Okay, and then we're in position to just continue. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So when you get to the G, you should be on the first finger of the picking hand, that is. And just do it 1 note at a time. So you really break down which finger you're on. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Really getting out the musical microscope here. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Now, when we get to the A up at the top, so we've now moved on to that 7th fret of the D string. I'm on the 2nd finger, so we're shifting across on the 2nd finger. Now I've kept the thumb here, right? Not a problem because I'm using rest strokes. So the finger is coming back to rest on the A string. So I could continue. I could keep the thumb on the E string if I wanted to. I don't have to shift up one if I don't want. Depends on how far you're going to be going up. Okay? Let's say that we're going to work all the way up to the G at the top. So, okay, so we're going to want to move that thumb again. So I've moved up onto that A. Notice what I said about the first finger. Move the thumb when you move the first finger. So I'm going to shift the thumb onto the A string when I reach the B. When I'm playing with the first finger. So there's the move. And then we're up to the C. And let's continue then. I'll shift up to the D, 12th fret. I've moved with the pinky there in terms of the fretboard. Now I'm on the first finger of the picking hand. Then 2nd finger when we move across onto the G string. And just keep alternating. And because the thumb is already here, we don't have a problem. Now what I tend to do is have the thumb on the A string and then holding back onto the E string. So this is semi kind of floating thumb technique. Oops. Floating thumb technique is where you play with the thumb constantly keeps this kind of position there under the... Okay, so it's very similar to it, what I'm doing. And I lock the thumb across there. Floating thumb comes in really handy on 5 and 6 string basses when you just cannot lock them all down just with normal rest stroke. So that's one way to measure that, the movement and the moving across with the thumb. But then if you really want to get into the alternate picking thing, just try the C major scale up and down. When you come down, so we've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So when you get to the octave, you're using the middle finger, 2, 1, and then just come back down. 2, 1, 2. So we're on 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. The hard part is when you get down from the A string down to the E string because you've got to jump back on that 2nd finger. Because it always feels odd to come back on the 2nd finger because it's longer. So when you come back like that, it's the reason why if you play an octave, why it makes more sense to play it like that, as in index middle, because the index middle is shorter. If you switch and you try middle, index, well, have a try. You'll see what I mean. It's because that 2nd finger's longer. You can do it, but it's way easier if you start on the index finger. And that is why you have to get used to actually coming back down on the 2nd finger if you want to keep the alternate picking going. Now, the other option is to rake. So if you rake... Actually, it's hard to do. I have to consciously think about doing it because I'm so used to playing it just alternating. But if you come back down, I'm on the E there at the 7th fret, played with the first finger. I can then rake down onto the D. which lands me back on the C on the second finger. Oops. Okay, so I raked that time. So that's it's me acid reflux coming back. I've got the damn sore throat. So you can use a raking motion, just same finger coming across. Okay, so that's a little bit on technique. So hopefully that will help you out. So we've covered quite a bit there. So I hope you all enjoyed that. So I've probably got economy of motion. That's what I was trying to say earlier on. Yeah, there's a lot of comments, so I won't be able to go up all the way up. So I'll just go up a little bit. Danny Morris. Yep, that was it. That was the name. I'll go a little bit further up just to see if there's... I couldn't find the free lesson map on the new app. Is it not available there? Yes, it is. Just go into... I'm logged out now. It's in the... Just go to the More, and it's down near the bottom. There's that and interviews. Micro shifts. Yep, that's it. I have nerve damage in my hands. That's Tom Grogan, and he's pivoting a lot. Yep, it's the... That's, I mean, all these things, I've never been taught any of this stuff, by the way. This is just stuff that you just kind of pick up over time as you're trying to play stuff. And everybody does the same kind of stuff, after a while. That's how Bunny Brunel says to place the thumb almost on the bottom of the neck. Yep, that's it. You get there and you just... Look how close I am to that. That's when I'm doing a very... I mean, I don't like to do that too much, but if you get that there, I mean, you can really curl the fingers. And that's the one thing I didn't talk about, curling the fingers. If you're wanting to articulate things like scales and stuff like that, and avoid typewriter fingers, right? This kind of thing... That's an obvious exaggeration, but if you wanted to avoid all of that, the way to do that is to curl the fingers. The more you curl the fingers, the less movement you're going to have. I learned that, from a guitarist, a friend of mine, when I was at music college. One of the fastest guitarists I've ever seen. Just insane shredder, right? And I used to watch his hands. I was in a band with him very briefly, and I used to sit there in the common room where we were, everybody would sit, when we're not in lectures. I just sit there watching him practice, acoustically, and he'd be like, Vroom. He'd do these 3-octave arpeggios, or scale. No, it was a 3-octave scale, and he'd play this 3-octave minor scale, and it'd be like, Vroom, Vroom, Vroom. It was literally that fast, like, Vroom. And that was 3 octaves up and down. And I'd be like watching him, and his hand just looked like it was doing that. It didn't look like his fingers were doing anything. It literally looked like this, like that. I was like, how the hell are you doing that? And then it suddenly dawned on me, because there was so little motion in there, that it was just because his fingers were curled. So he'd got them really curled over. So it's the more you curl them over, the less of this motion that you're going to get. But the more you're going to have to really worry about the muting, because like I said, I use that home position thing for very generalized bass playing. No matter what I'm playing, if I'm you can see that I'm working from that home position there, and if you do that, you can't curl your fingers. So it depends on what you're playing. So I'm not one of these people that has this strict technique where everything's exactly the same. The way I see it is kind of like the Bruce Lee way of, be like water, my friend. It's adapt to whatever you're playing. If you're playing like I said, anything to stop the noise. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, I've got the thumb coming over. I'm shifting between different positions just to manage everything and make sure that I can do stuff. There's no one size fits all with technique. You know, it's not a case of, you know, because you'll get some people say, okay, right, thumb in the back of the neck, curled fingers, as if that is going to work for everything. And I can tell you now, it won't. Try all you want. It won't. It won't work for everything. I mean, you could kind of find ways to kind of get by on stuff like that. But at the end of the day, why try and fit everything into what your technique is rather than adapting your technique to the piece? I'd rather adapt technique to the piece so the music comes first rather than trying to just fit everything into, well, this is how I was taught to play. You know, that's not going to work. So, so I just like to adapt to whatever it is. Whatever's going to work for the piece, whatever is going to get the right sound, whatever is going to, you know, get you from A to B, or C to D, works. If it sounds right, it's right. And as long as it's not causing you any injury. It's a little bit like those things that they say where it's like, I don't care what you believe in as long as you don't cause any, you know, as long as nobody gets hurt. You know, it's like, it's the same thing. You know, it's like as long as, play how you want. If it sounds right, then that's right, as long as you don't hurt yourself. You know, to hell with everybody that says, oh, yes, but that's not correct, you know. Nah. I'd say anybody that says that, where they say that this is the technique. You use this technique all the time, like da-da-da-da-da. I doubt the variety of their style, to be honest. I'd be like, well, okay, well, that works for playing regular bass lines or maybe even a classical line or a technically difficult line, but, you know, that's finger-picked. But will it work for picking, like plectrum playing? Will it work for slapping? You know, that's how, I mean, there's a whole can of worms there. I'll be going in a sec because the throat's starting to play up. Everybody that's been to my recent live streams will know what I'm talking about. I've got this acid reflux thing going on. It's been working out really well, but I've been having my tablets and all that stuff. But after talking for a while, it starts to give me problems. My right thumb sometimes has a hard time when I play lines with strings, crossing, skipping. I often ask myself, should I stay on the E string? Yeah, it depends on what it is. If you're moving quick and you're coming backwards and forwards, then just stay where you are. You'd never move your... It's not like you're going to move your thumb when you're playing octaves. When I play that kind of stuff, I do move the thumb... I move the thumb a little bit, but if I'm jumping right across strings, then I'm just not going to bother. Again, does it sound right? If it sounds right. If you're getting noise, then you've got to figure stuff out. And by the way, you won't know if you're playing it acoustically. You need to play through a loud amp to really know whether you're getting noise. If it sounds messy when you play through an amp with a little bit of volume, then you know that there's something that you need to work on. But don't worry about being too loud, because if you're too loud in a room, if you're in a small room and you've got an amp quite loud, that's kind of the equivalent of having a ridiculously loud amp in a large hall. You kind of have to think of relatively how it would be. So you don't need it to be that loud in a small room, but like you want to be able to hear it. And then if you're getting residual noise from those strings that you're not muting, then yes, that's when there's an issue. Thanks, Smart Guys Analytics. Thanks for illustrating proper hand position. I missed the hand position. Thumb should be on the back behind the frets. Yeah, most of the time, yeah. I mean, as I showed with that, it depends. If he's slapping, you know, that Mark King kind of, that, you can see what I'm doing with thumb there. I'm muting it. then the thumb comes into play. But most of the time, I mean, and like I said earlier on with the stretch, if you're wanting to get a big stretch, then look where the thumb is. It literally can flip off there. So I'm watching from the beginning. The problem with the password regarding the app will likely be that the app isn't accepting one of the characters in the password that the website does. Possibly. I'll check that out. No, it's not that, because I kept the same password when I redid my password, when I did it for myself as admin. Like I said, it's only a few people that have had this happen. I'm wondering if it's something to do with the length of the account, because obviously I've had my account since 2013 when I started. So I'm just wondering if it's the length of time. But I'll sort it out. I'll figure it out. James Jameson only played with one finger. That's right, he did. Although I think you'll find he probably didn't always. There's all these mythologies that you get going, and he did obviously play with the hook, most of the time. But there are a few things that I've heard him play, especially on that I Was Made to Love Her thing that I did, and I was listening to the soloed bass line, and I was like, man, I'm pretty sure that because you can tell the difference between a picked note, something that's been picked several times, consistent picking, and then consistent picking with one finger, and then when another finger comes in, because there's a little bit more fluidity with it. It's the difference, like the difference on guitar between all downstrokes and then alternate picking. And I'm not one of those that gets on a rant about because you see this all the time with people like Cliff Burton and Les Claypool and all these, but you get fanboys talking about them like they're the great, like they're gods where there's nothing that can, well, they did it the hard way. If you want to do it like they did, you want to try it like this and it's really hard. I don't care about any of that. The fact of the matter is, he probably sometimes, if he could be bothered, would put a second finger in, or if he needed to. It's why would he not? It just probably did. But most of the time, I mean, I play with one finger most of the time. If I don't need to use two fingers, I won't. I'm not going to use two fingers if I'm playing this. Why would I? No point. If I've got to go, I'll probably use two fingers, maybe, because it just sits there nicely, but I don't have to. I mean, you get a nice consistent tone when you play with one finger, but even soloing, I'll play with one finger most of the time. I only bring the other fingers into play when I need to, and sometimes I'll play with, playing with three fingers. Like a lot of the time. Yeah, three fingers, I only use them when I need to. I know people like to talk about Billy Sheehan and his, playing fours with threes and all that kind of stuff, but if I don't need to, if I'm just playing this, why am I going to bother with three? There's no point. I'll use the minimum amount of things that I need to. But that's just me. I mean, I'm not important. but if it doesn't feel like I need to, like if I've got to suddenly start thinking about different accents, and to be honest, everybody falls into a trap with the Billy Sheehan one. They start thinking that they're having to accent with these alternating accents. I mean, he's talked about it, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So you accent on that one, and then you accent on that one, and then on that one. But you'll find, just as with everybody does with two fingers, that the key to it is to learn how to not have any accents. So the first thing that you should do with learning to play consistent with a two-finger technique is to have it so that there's no accents, so that both are exactly the same. And then... so that you can put the accents where you want. So when you're doing three-finger, the better aim is to actually be able to do no accents. And then add them where you want. There I was doing fives, but all I was doing was thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I wasn't thinking of the finger it's on. So if you've got a lack of accents, and then you just start thinking of where it needs to be, you don't have to think of what the finger is. You just let the fingers do it. I'm just thinking, that's all I'm thinking. I'm not even counting. I'm not going 1 E and a 2 E and. I'm not doing that. I'm just thinking, I'm not thinking of which finger it's on. And it just so happens that it falls on. Okay, and I'm pretty sure that's how Billy Sheehan did it, because he's not the kind of guy that really gets into overthinking the things. All of these things, he admits that it's just to do with what worked live. He's a live player, and it's just what worked. So he won't have been sat there thinking, I'm going to play a 3. Yes, in effect, it does, but you don't really need to think of that. All you need to think of is where it's going to be. Ba 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 ba. Oops. Now, I don't bother, because most of the time I'll just play it like that. But if it's really fast, then I might. It's like with the... if you're doing something like Disposable Heroes, then it's easier. You can hear it easier on this if I mute it. Then I'll use 3 fingers for things like that. Same with, the typical Steve Harris thing. Yeah, I know. You want to try it with 2 fingers, and I've already done a lesson on that. I mean, it's really good to practice, and I can do that. But why would I even bother when I don't have to? Steve Harris does, because that's how he plays. But I just go for the easy way. It's not really going to make any. At the end of the day, in a live gig situation, who's going to know? And you can go faster with 3 fingers anyway. No matter how fast you can go with 2 fingers, not that I care about speed, but no matter how fast you can go with 2 fingers, you'll still be able to go faster with 3 fingers. Like, Steve Harris is a monster with 2 fingers, but if he put his 3rd finger in there, well, he'd be going faster than he does with 2 fingers, wouldn't he? So, either way. But I don't really care at the end of the day. And neither will he. That's for the fanboys to argue out in YouTube land. Oh, I had the app login error on both iOS and Android. I just hit enter again and it worked the second time on both. That's Ian Reed. I'm getting a feeling, that might be something to do with the server. I've just got this feeling because, right, so I might need to upgrade the server. We were pondering this. I was talking to the guys over at the... I'm hosted. I won't even tell you where I'm hosted, but just in case there's anybody out there that wants to kind of hack into everything. But I know that the guys over, some of the technicians over at the place that I'm hosted, they were saying that I might need to upgrade the because I'm on dedicated server, so that I might need to upgrade the server, possibly. When the app comes out, because it gets hammered with a lot of queries, does the database. So I might need to. I might not, but that might be what that is. I don't want to, because it's a lot of money. But I thought, well, I'll see whether it actually works out, because if I don't have to pay, God knows how much, I won't even tell you how much it is, but I'm telling you, if I told you how much it was, you'd be like, really? Why would anybody pay that? Because it is, multiple thousands per month. So, just for having an app that's free, and like I said this last time, that, a lot of people don't realize how much it costs to actually, the infrastructure for keeping everything running without, anything. I mean, the TalkingBass itself, I said it before, just the amount of people that visit the website, if I wasn't making any money, the whole thing would have to shut down, because the amount of people that go there, it wouldn't be able to withstand it, because you have to build up the infrastructure to handle that amount of traffic. So it's weird. The more people that you get, if if you had somebody that was saying, no, I'm not going to charge for anything, I'm not going to have any products, I'm not going to do anything. Well, good luck with that. You won't get anywhere, because the traffic will get too much and you'll just have to shut down the account. it'll just be crashing all the time. So yeah, I don't want to, but maybe that is what's causing it. I'm not dead sure. I mean, it's only been released today, so if we have any more problems, I'll look into it. I'll be monitoring it as the week goes on. It just so happens that there'll have been a huge, big surge of people go into it when I put out the email. So it might have been that we just got hammered on the server, and that it's, and then when you did it again, it had got a break. But I'll check it later on today. I'll monitor it on the server, and I'll see how it's going. You wouldn't have thought I had to deal with all this stuff, would you? I sit there doing these videos. I do my little videos. I put them up on YouTube. I do my little courses. I spend more of my time doing all this kind of rubbish, like dealing with server issues and dealing with blooming... I do all the video editing. I have to deal with all that garbage as well, and the marketing and all that stuff. It's like, man, I didn't sign up for this. But, you learn a lot when you're doing it. I've often said that if I'm now moved into a different job, right, and if with the stuff I've learned from doing all this, because I didn't know any of this when I first started out. I mean, all right, I could do web development and stuff to a certain degree. I'm not exactly like super pro standard, but, I can build websites and things like that. I learned how to do that when the web started back in the early 90s. I've got a bit of a background in stuff. I've got a pretty good IT background. I've always been into computers. I learned to, write code when I was probably about in the early 80s. But I'm a bass player, aren't I? So learning how to edit video and Facebook ads and Google ads and blooming all that garbage, and then writing all the, doing the thumbnails for everything, the artwork for everything, and all that crap. It's like, I didn't sign up for that, but you learn it all. And so if I was to go into a different job now and they says, "Oh, okay, what do you do? What did you do in your last job?" I'd be like, "Well, where do I get started?" I did this and I did that. So it's all good fun, innit? You just learn a load of stuff. Had a server error message. All right, okay, Paul's had a server error. Looks like the server's taking a pasting. As all of America rises and they all come out of bed. Mind you, it's a little bit later, and everybody's going over there. I think the server's taking a pasting. I think this week I'm going to have to bite the bullet and, risk bankruptcy. Just for the sake of a free app. On the subject of that, maybe you're all best going and buying some courses to pay for it. Okay, I'll get going in a sec. The throat's just falling apart. Regarding the fingering, especially for fast passages, I suppose it's also what you need to do in order for your hand not to cramp, right? Yeah. That's another thing, actually, just on the subject of all of that. Another thing is keep your hand relaxed. You can be playing something like... It's really embarrassing. I did a gig... Oh, it's going back a bit now. About four years ago. I know it was in 2017. It was before I got married. It was in that year. And I'd taken a ship gig. It was the one I did the vlog about. When I did that vlog thing. And we played The Locomotion. It was a disco version of it. Everybody's doing it. And I've played that. I've literally played that thousands and thousands of times, right? But the version we did, I think it was like the Kylie Minogue version or something like that. It had got like this, a typical disco bass line, but it was on like one chord. And so I started playing it, and I think my amp was down a little. I must have not been up loud enough. I was sight reading it, so I'm like there playing. And I kind of got, after about a minute of doing it, my hands started cramping up. I thought, oh my God, this is embarrassing. I'm actually falling apart playing The Locomotion. And it was because I was gripping too hard. I suddenly realized I was holding down I'm playing really hard. And I suddenly realized that my amp wasn't loud enough. I'd not turned it up enough. All of a sudden, we'd gone from playing some like easy listening thing to playing like a pop set. And, we'd been playing at the lower volume. And all of a sudden, the drums are hitting harder. Everybody's turning up a little bit. And I was still down at the lower level. So I was playing harder. And when I was playing harder in that hand, I was gripping harder in this hand. I'd not even thought about it. My brain was just reading the music. I suddenly thought, man, what am I doing? I'm really gripping hard. If the lighter that you play, the less likely you are to cramp up. Simple. So play lighter. Smart guys analytics. Music equals math equals code equals web page dev. Yeah, I suppose so. Wait a minute, mate. You look 30 coding in the 80s. Really? I'm 46. I was 46 on June the 3rd. So I'm 46, so 50's coming up soon. But yeah, I'm not doing too bad. But look at my hair. It's all white. Trust me, the lights are on me here. They're blowing out all the I don't look as... I know my skin looks quite fine on this with all, blown out like this. But, I'm not as unwrinkled as it looks there. Although I'm not doing too bad for it. I don't look that old. But it's, I'm 46. It's funny because I've got loads of people that think I'm younger when they see me on the videos, which is nice. But you wouldn't say that if you saw me at like 5 o'clock in the morning with the kids getting up. I don't look 30 then. I've even had some people say, "Are you wearing makeup?" And I can say that I've never worn makeup apart from when the kids start to put stuff on my face. So no, but yeah. So yeah, when I say I was coding in the 80s, yeah, I can tell you exactly when it was. So I was born in 1975, and my dad bought a Tandy TRS-80 color computer. So you might have seen them called Cocos as well. And he bought that in about 1981 or 82. I can't remember when they came out. It might have been 81, 82. So I could have been 6, could have been 7. And he wanted to use it for his business. He's an electronics engineer, and he builds all these different things. And he wanted to. He thought, computers, they're the future. We can use those for automating systems in the thing. Oh, Mark's a nerd, 6 or 7. Yeah, I used to like reading. He'll learn how to program it. So he got me this Tandy TRS-80, 16K. Although it was only 8K of RAM if you were using BASIC. You had to use machine code to get the full 16K. And you got these 2 books with them. Anybody that's had a Tandy TRS-80 don't know what I'm talking about. You got them with it. It was like they were sort of landscape. And there was like this computer, this screen with legs that sort of a little bit like the Microsoft clip that you get. That thing was on the pages, taking you through BASIC, right? Just learning how to program BASIC. So I just sat there working on it, thinking, I've got to learn how to program a thing for my dad so that he can automate things in his workshop, which never happened. So I learned how to write BASIC. I was about 6 or 7, and I used to write my own games. I remember watching Firefox when that came out the first time, with Clint Eastwood in it. And I made a text adventure game, a graphic text adventure game of that. But I was terrible at animated things on it. But, I couldn't do much with sprites. I don't even think you used sprites back in those days. But at the same time, he also had an arcade machine business on the side. We used to hire out jukeboxes and arcade machines to people. So I got mega into... You can imagine as a little 6, 7, 8-year-old, my dad would sometimes bring back these arcade machines like Defender and Asteroids and Ghosts and Goblins. I remember getting that for the first time and going, oh my God. And I used to be amazing on all those arcade machines because he'd put one in the shop downstairs because we used to live in a flat above the shop. And I just used to sit there, I'd have we'd open up the coin up part and then you just click, 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 put as many credits on as you want. And I'd just sit there practicing them all day long. So I used to be, I think it was like Donkey Kong. I could keep going on that so I didn't die. I knew every pattern on it. So I could just keep going. Same with Kangaroo. That was one of them. I could just, so I could hustle people when I used to go out. They used to hire him out sometimes to the school I was in for like summer fetes and stuff like that. And so I'd say, all right, okay, somebody once challenged me to a 2-player on it, and they did we put 10p in, and they had their part, and then he died, and then it went to me, and I just kept going. So stuff like that. No, it was Firefox had Clint Eastwood in it. Blue Thunder had that was Roy Schneider or Scheider. Was it Scheider or Schneider? Firefox was Clint Eastwood with the not an SR-71, but it was like it was Blue Thunder was the one with the helicopter because I was really into Airwolf, and Blue Thunder, it was the Not as good as Airwolf. Airwolf would have kicked Blue Thunder's ass. But Firefox was Clint Eastwood. Yeah, where he has to get across into Russia. It was full-on Cold War film. It's like finds his way into Russia and then steals this new Firefox thing. And then they brought out that amazing arcade machine. Well, I say amazing arcade machine of it. It was actually a crap game. But it was Laserdisc. Look at me, I'm going... I'm on a rant now about all that stuff. But there was a reason I mentioned... Yeah, so when I was getting into all the computer stuff, I then got a Commodore 64. My dad bought me that for Christmas in about 84, I think it was. And it had got about... I knew he'd got 62 or 62 discs he'd got with it, and they were all double-sided discs, and the dude I think was a hacker. He'd got loads of hacking stuff, although he didn't have a modem, but he had all this stuff for hacking games and that, but he had all these games all pirated, so there were about 2 or 3, maybe sometimes 4 games on one side of a disc, and so I got that for Christmas, and I just remember it was the best Christmas ever. And I'd never heard music like it because the SID chip on it. Oh, my God. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I remember hearing Crack Out. I think it was not Martin Galway, Ben Dalgleish that did the music for it. And I was just like, oh, my God, this is amazing. So I got massively into the music on that Commodore 64. And there was a music construction set on there, and I used to put bark pieces into it and that. So this is about 84 when I was doing all that. And then after that, I got really into that. And then I got an Atari ST 8990, something like that. And that's when I learned how to use Cubase. So I've been using Cubase on an Atari ST. So actually, it was a bit later than that. It was about 91, 92. So I've been using Cubase. If that's when it came out, maybe it was later, 93. Maybe definitely 93, because that's when I was at music college using it. Yeah. So, that's the history of me and computers. Do you still code? No, I'm terrible. Like a friend of mine, we grew up together, and he does some of my Google ads, and he helped me with when we were trying to get, when I was doing all the migrating everything across. He came down. He still lives up in Leeds, and he came down, and we did it together, just like hammering that out. Paul, and he's a genius, that guy. But he does. I thought a spider was crawling towards me on there. And he's really good at that stuff. But we both started doing all that stuff at the same time. So he had a Dragon 32 and I had a Tandy TRS-80, and they're both the same kind of computer, really, and same games on them, Phantom Slayer and things like that. And oh man, I'm thinking back to all this stuff. I've not thought about that for ages. But I've just bought a new Commodore 64 because I chucked mine on the skip in a tip about 10 years ago. And so his next door neighbour was selling a Commodore 64. So I said, right, okay, I'm having that. So when I go up to Leeds in a few weeks, I'm going to pick that up, bring it down. I might put it in here with a little CRT TV. Because I'd like to start, but I never learned assembly language or machine code. It was all basic, pretty much. I learned a bit of C+ when I was because I actually did a computer science BTEC course for a little bit before I went to music college. So I learned a bit of that. Actually, it wasn't C++, it was C. So I learned C and about how to do a bit of that. And I've learned a little bit of PHP and a little bit of JavaScript, little bits here and there. I'm pretty crap at CSS as well. Give me the stuff and I can sort of tell what's going on, but I can't write from scratch. So if you ask me to write a website nowadays from scratch using PHP and everything, then I'd be lost. But I can kind of understand it when I see it, so I know what to alter when I see stuff. Weird, isn't it? It's a bit like being able to read a language, like reading French, but not being able to speak it. It's weird. I bow to your memory. It's angelic. I had a ZX Spectrum 48K. Yeah, a friend of mine had a Spectrum. And then I got my Commodore, and we were always like competing. And I was like, nah, this thing can kill that. The Commodore had a much better sound chip. But Speckies had they had a bit of a vibe. The graphics always looked very similar. Things like Manic Miner and things like that. Everything looked kind of the same. I used to be really good on Chucky Egg. I don't know if you remember that game. I used to be able to nail that one on a BBC B, because I used to use a BBC B as well. Good old Acorn. Is Cubase better than Pro Tools? They all do the same thing at the end of the day. I'm not that good with Pro Tools, just because I've been using Cubase, like I say, since 1990 odd. So I've never really got into Pro Tools. I've always been there when people are using it. But if anybody gives me anything like to do, and I have to do it in a DAW, I'll just, because they'll just give you WAV files and stuff. I'll just bump it into Cubase. At the end of the day, you're just going to be. The end product is the same, so whichever DAW you use, but it's just that Pro Tools is like the industry standard. So really, I ought to be like Sibelius. Sibelius is the industry standard for notation software, but I use Finale because Finale was out before, and I used that from 1995. I used that from when I started my degree. Sibelius wasn't a thing then, and I got so fast at using Finale. Honestly, of all the things, I'm not that good at much, but I'm pretty good on Finale. I'm pretty fast with that. I'm quite proud of the speed that I've got with that. I can knock out a piece on Finale pretty quick because of all the speedy edit and all that lot, and I just do it on the keyboard. I'm just like. Right, I'll go in a sec. I'll just answer these last few questions. You can hear my throat's just dying on me. Cubase is more expensive than Pro Tools. Not sure if it's any better or worse. I use Reaper, yeah. Just check for ebooks. All PDFs bring up found E404 error. Really? I'm going to have to check out all this stuff. Everything was working A-OK this morning. I've got a feeling that the server's taking a pasting. I'm sure of it. Which is annoying. Like I say, probably just gonna. That's more money to spend. Not that I'm bothered. It's necessary. But I was hoping that it was going to be fine. But and they said, "Oh, you want to do it before?" But I'm like, "Well, why would I spend thousands of pounds on upgrading a server if I don't have to?" Because you know what it's like when somebody's trying to sell you something. They were in sales mode, and they were like, the dude, he was a sales guy, and he's like, well, when's it going to be? And they're pushing for me upgrading the server. And I'm like, yeah, but everything's running fine. They're like, yeah, but you want to make sure it's fine before because you don't want everything falling apart when you do it. And I'm like, yeah, but if it does, then I'll upgrade. It only takes it. I mean, literally. And I says, how long does it take to upgrade? And it's like, a few minutes. And I'm like, well, I'll just upgrade then. Rather than, here you go, here's some cash for nothing, You tell them from Yorkshire. As an old video game guy, have you listened to the 8-bit Big Bang Orchestra? No, I haven't, but I do know about it. I need to check that out. I do listen to a lot of the things that there's real band versions of stuff like Rob Hubbard tunes and things like that on C64, and they're always really good. And Martin Dalglish, Martin Galway, and people like that. See, I know all the names of these guys. Such a nerd. When gigging, do you use chord sheets, sheet music tab, memorize? Depends on the gig. If it's a function band or something like that where there's no charts on there, I'll just memorize everything. If it's a reading gig, I'll be reading. It depends on the gig. That Tina Turner show that I did a few weeks ago, that was all reading. So I was reading everything on stage. Cruise ship stuff that I used to do, that's all reading. I'd be reading everything on stage. Until you've played it enough times that sometimes I'd memorize it, which is easier if you're doing like deck parties and things like that. It's better to have it memorized. But if you're back in visiting cabaret acts and things like that, then it's read. If it's it depends, because sometimes it's just chord charts. So it's everything. I've had to read everything. I've had to read all kinds of things. I've had to memorize all kinds of things. I've done shows where I've had to memorize about 80 and 90 tunes for something, where it's all segue. You need to be prepared for everything. Assembler is very rudimentary, but works awesome, even on C64. Great graphics control. That's good to know. I've heard people saying that assembly language isn't actually that bad. It's the people that can write machine code from their head that just destroy my brain. I just can't understand how you do it. I mean, I just remember doing in that computer science course that I was doing, where we were having to do loads of conversion between hexadecimal and decal and binary. And, oh, man, it was just, I hate maths at the best of times, but having to do all that, God. It's like those guys just read everything in binary or hex, Servers may be enough once the rush is over. There we go. There's sense. But, if I'm banking on this thing taking off, because now that it's on the app, I think people are going to find it a lot easier to access stuff. So we'll see. But there's a thing going on here. I think it's the server. Bearded Warrior. We had a ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, BBC B. See, you're just like me. Chucky Egg was one of the best games ever, as was Repton. Yeah, Jem, my missus, her mum, she's really into Repton. I also love Kickstart on the 64. Yeah, Kickstart 2. And did you ever see Action Biker on the 64? In terms of the music as well, Last Ninja 2 is one of my favourites. I like Sanction as well by Robobird. I could go on and rant about all that stuff as well. I used to have a tape I used to take around when I was about 10 that had got a load of Commodore 64 stuff I'd recorded with a microphone from a tape deck. Because there was no easy way of getting the music off it. So I'd recorded it with this tape deck that had got a little microphone in it. And I'd recorded that, and then when I used to go and stay at my nan's, grandma and granddad's or whatever, for the summer, I'd go there for like 2 weeks and I'd be playing it all the time. Yeah, what a nerd. Right, gotta go. Because before long, I won't be able to speak. And plus, we'll be putting my little one off in a couple of minutes. So I'd better get back so we can do that. Okay, right, everybody. Lovely to see you. Hopefully, that all helped with all the technique thing. Remember, sale finishes tomorrow, 30% off all the courses. Go check out the app that's there for Android and iOS and, tablets and whatever. And that's all there in the app stores. So go check that out. And I might be here again next week. Oh, no, will I be here next week? Oh, we'll see. But just check your emails for if I'm going to be doing it again next week. All right, then, everybody. Love it to see you. And I'll see you later.